Imagine finding a historical document capable of revealing unknown details about Jesus. And if I told you that Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor who judged Christ, wrote a letter to Emperor Tiberius describing the appearance of the one who divided the story? This discovery can change the way we imagine Jesus and make us reflect on the impact he had on humanity. But what exactly does this letter say? How did Pilate describe the man who was judged before him? Do your words bring clues about the true identity of Jesus? Get ready to dive into a fascinating account that mixes politics, faith, and supernatural events. In the end, you can draw your own conclusions about this millennial mystery. For centuries, scholars and historians sought evidence about the figure of Jesus outside the biblical accounts. Among the most intriguing documents, there is an alleged letter written by Pontius Pilate to Emperor Tiberius, in which the governor of Judea describes a man who was before him in the trial. This document, which would have been preserved in old records, brings surprising details about the appearance of Jesus, his posture, and the impact he had on those who knew him. But is this letter real? The existence of this text has been the subject of intense debates. Some believe that he was really written by Pilate, as a formal account to the emperor about the events that shook Judea. Others question their authenticity, suggesting that it may have been produced later by Christian writers. In any case, the content of the letter raises important reflections on the Roman governor's view of Jesus and the historical moment he witnessed. Whether authentic or not, this letter invites us to look at Jesus through the eyes of a man who was directly involved in his crucifixion. What did Pilate saw in that man? What made him hesitate before condemning him? Throughout this study, we will analyze the description contained in the letter and understand how it fits in the context of the time. Pontius' letter Pilate to Emperor Tiberius brings a detailed description of Jesus' appearance, revealing characteristics that challenge many of the artistic representations we know. According to the report, he was a tall man with a remarkable presence with a serene face that conveyed unusual peace. Her brown hair, falling naturally to her shoulders, were harmonious with her thick and slightly bifurcated beard, a rare stroke for the time. But what caught the most attention was his gray eyes with penetrating shine, capable of crossing the soul of those who stared at him. In addition to his physical appearance, Jesus impressed by his expression and behavior. His gaze conveyed wisdom and authority, as if he carried knowledge beyond human understanding. He moved with a noble and respectable stance, without demonstrating arrogance, but kind of dignity that imposed respect. When he spoke, his words carried a unique serenity, deeply touching those who heard him. Interestingly, Pilate mentions that he often cried, but laughing little, reinforcing his introspective nature and deep compassion for humanity. These details reflect what did Pilate really see in Jesus, who marked him so much? Was it just your unique appearance, or the feeling of being before someone beyond the ordinary? The description contained in the letter invites us to reconsider the traditional image of Christ and to see it from a different, more human, and more divine look. But this striking presence also bothered many. And that's where we began to understand the impact it caused. The presence of Jesus did not go unnoticed. Pontius Pilate, used to dealing with political criminals and agitators, saw before him a man other than any other. He did not defend himself with despair or showed fear. On the contrary, his serenity was almost disconcerting. His words were not revolt, but they carried a deep wisdom and an authority that did not come from titles or armies. This caused Pilate to hesitate. How could you condemn a man who showed no fault? But while Pilate saw wise, religious leaders saw a threat. Pharisees and priests, fearing to lose influence on the people, pressured the governor to condemn him. They claimed that Jesus blasphemed and urged rebellion against Rome. The governor was facing a dilemma on the one hand. He saw an innocent man on the other. He faced political and social pressure that could cost his position, even trying to find a way out. He realized that his authority was not enough to contain the fury of the crowd. In an attempt to release him, Pilate presented the choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a known criminal. But to his surprise, the crowd demanded that Barabbas be released. The governor was trapped. What else could you do? It was then that he made a symbolic decision that would echo for the centuries. He washed his hands before the people, stating that he was not responsible for the blood of that righteous man. But did this really relieve your conscience? When Pilate finally gave in to pressure and handed Jesus to be crucified, something strange began to happen. The day, which was still clear, suddenly darkened. It was as if heaven himself mourned what was about to happen. The sun disappeared, and some witnesses claimed to have seen stars shining on the day. This unusual phenomenon made many wonders if that man who suffered on the cross was really just a simple prophet. Even the soldiers used the brutal executions felt a shiver of restlessness. And then, at the exact moment Jesus exhaled his last breath, the earth trembled. The impact was so strong that cracks emerged in buildings, and Jerusalem's own temple had its veil torn in half. Some reports still claim that tombs opened and killed were seen walking around the city. For Pilate, which already carried doubts about that man's real identity, these events seemed more than simple coincidences. Something extraordinary was happening, and he knew he couldn't ignore. Given all this, Pilate could not hide the weight he felt in consciousness. His decision, made under political pressure, now seemed much more serious than he imagined. As he washed his hands, he symbolically tried to exempt himself from guilt. But did he really believe that? The signs that accompanied the crucifixion were too strong to ignore. But what would shake your certainty the most was yet to come. 3 days after the crucifixion, new rumors began to spread. The body of Jesus had disappeared from the tomb. The soldiers who guarded the tomb reported something unbelievable. An intense light shone, and a supernatural presence left them paralyzed with fear. The stone was removed, and the tomb was empty. Many began to claim that Jesus had risen, and the reported apparitions only increased the mystery. For Pilate, that was a serious problem. If these stories were true, it meant that he had not condemned an ordinary man. The Roman governor felt a mix of fear and curiosity. The information came from different sources, and even some Roman officers began to question if they had executed someone who had a power beyond human understanding. Pilate knew that any popular commotion could turn into revolt, so he tried to silence the rumors. But the truth is that deep down, he also wondered, what if this man really claimed to be? The doubt eroded your mind. This event marked him deeply. Unlike others condemned to death, who were quickly forgotten, Jesus seemed more present than ever. His name was still spoken, his teaching spread, and those who followed him claimed to have seen him alive. For Pilate, which had already felt a huge weight in condemning him, this turnaround brought even more restlessness. How to deal with the fact that your decision could have been the biggest mistake of your life. The days had passed, but Pilate could never forget Jesus. The weight of that decision accompanied him for the rest of his life. He tried to move on, rule Judea, and maintain order, but something inside it had changed. The memories of the trial, the enraged crowd, the washing of the hands, and especially the supernatural events that followed the crucifixion, they did not leave him alone. Had an innocent man condemned? Or worse, had you condemned the Son of God himself? Roman politics was merciless. Governing Judea was a constant challenge, and Pilate knew that his position depended on strategic decisions. But as much as he tried to justify his choice as a political necessity, something plagued him. Jesus was not like the others. His gaze, his posture, his words. Everything in him seemed different, heavenly, beyond human understanding. This thought grew in your mind as an impossible doubt to ignore. If Pilate had made another decision, what would have happened? Would the history of humanity be different? It is impossible to know. But one thing is certain: Jesus was not forgotten. Its impact has crossed generations, turned empires, and continues to influence the billions of people to this day. The question that remains is, if even Pilate felt the weight of his choice, what will we do before the story of Jesus? The story of Pilate and Jesus makes us reflect on the choices we make and the consequences they can have. Pilate tried to exempt himself from responsibility, but realized that some decisions accompany us forever. What would have happened if he had resisted the pressure? Could he have changed the course of history? Or did it all happen exactly More than 2,000 years have passed, and Jesus continues to impact lives. His name has never been erased, and his message continues to resonate. And you? Have you ever wondered what this story means to your life? What would you do if you were in place of Pilate? Would it have made the same decision? These are questions that each one needs to answer for themselves. If this story made you reflect, don't stop here. Keep exploring these themes and following our content. Subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and share this video with more people. Together we can dive even deeper into the mysteries and truths that history reveals to us.